Hey guys, welcome to Sex Ed episode 3. So thanks for everyone that's come and watched my last two. I can't believe the amount of you that are interested in what we are doing here, and I'm so happy that it can be helpful to everyone that's been watching. So we talked about consent last week, and consent is a huge part of obviously sex ed, sexual wellness, sexual relationships, all that kind of thing. And we just talked about what consent was and how to gain consent and how we're sure that somebody is giving you consent, or how to give consent yourself. So I had lots of feedback about that. So I think I will do another one on consent, but sort of a bit more open on relationships and stuff like that as well, and manipulation and how that kind of can get out of hand, but a little bit more down the track when we get into things a bit deeper. So today we're talking about slut shaming. So literally everybody has heard about slut shaming, about slut, the word slut. Everyone has probably heard it being thrown around at high school quite a bit. I know that's when I don't say or hear slut a lot in my vocab, or the people I hang out with anymore, but certainly heard it a lot as a teenager, and was called it, and had my friends be called it. I probably called somebody a slut before in my life, I would imagine too. And so we're talking about slut shaming. So where did the term slut shaming even come from? I believe that it was sort of brought about as a revolution, on like a sexual revolution. Like you can't be shaming women, predominantly women. I don't like to have a sort of a specific gender when I talk to you guys, but we all know that slut shaming is more sort of a female's issue than men's. But in saying that, it's obviously men are involved because they're either saying it or carrying it on or not defending girls in their lives, or stopping it, just stopping that talk at all. So yeah, slut shaming sort of came about to say that, hey, we're not going to be told that we can't be sexually active anymore, that we can't have different partners, that kind of thing, that we're women and we're the same as men and we deserve the same rights as that, and that we won't be shamed anymore. So it's not, slut shaming isn't necessarily a derogatory term or something negative. It's more sort of to counter the negative on slut shaming and all that sort of thing. Yeah, so it was to bring the power back to the other side. So I looked up the Urban Dictionary, because obviously slut shaming is probably not in the old Oxford English edition, but I would look up most of my words on Urban Dictionary anyway. And so it was described as the action or fact of stigmatizing women for behavior judged to be promiscuous or so sexually provocative. So the Urban Dictionary was specific to women, it wasn't to men, and based around women and the shaming of women and their sexual relationships and things like that. I also looked up on Wikipedia, just because I like to see if there's a difference, especially when it's sort of a new term that has come around recently. I like to see what everyone thinks about it. So Wikipedia described it as a people problem, not as a woman problem. So it was practice of criticizing people, especially women, so highlighted there, or girls, who are perceived to violate expectations of behaviour and appearance regarding issues related with sexuality. Isn't that one of the most fucked up things you've ever heard? So, yeah, to pick that apart, criticising. You shouldn't be criticising anyone in the way they live about anything, let alone something so personal as their sexual relationships or conquests or exploits or whatever you're talking to them about. It's private and it's nothing to be judged by any other person unless you're in that relationship yourself or they're directly hurting you. So criticizing, not here for that. Women and girls, So this is my issue. When I was at high school, boys were cheered on, you know, given praise for sexual conquests. Girls were often in the same time. It could be the same two, girl and guy, where the guy is being praised, the girl will be slut shamed. And it's just so bizarre, especially, like I say, it can be happening in the same time, and the girl is being given different treatment to the guy. It's like, whoa, nailed it, man. Girl, it's like, should she be sleeping with him? So that's sort of what we're here to talk about today. Why that's an issue, and why we shouldn't be calling people sluts anymore. Another part of that Wikipedia definition, it was girls or women who are perceived to violate. Who's in control of these women, this one, girls, woman, whoever? Who are they violating? Like, what code are they violating? Who made these rules for these women? Because I've never received my set of rules on my sexual life. I don't believe that any human has. And so for it to be in a definition that you're criticized because you violated something that doesn't exist, that's where the issue is. It's the society has made this set of rules for women and for men around sex and how they should act, and it's fucked up. And then perceived to violate expectations of a behaviour and appearance regarding issues related with sexuality. So it's only become an issue because you've slut shamed the person. It wasn't an issue. Them having sex was never an issue. It's the shaming of it that has brought it in to be an issue. So I find that definition so backwards, and probably a lot of the reason why girls are being, and boys and transgender, anyone these days are being, especially now that the internet's opened up, being slut shamed. So when we talk sexual wellness, sexual education, it's a lot more than the physical aspect of actually having sex, pleasure, that kind of thing. The mental side is where people struggle, and so slut shaming comes into that mental side. So when you put somebody down for something they might enjoy, something they found fun, something they found loving or caring, or they got pleasure from it, as soon as you say something, criticize or tarnish that, you've mentally entered that person's sexual wellness or lack of. And so it's important that when you hear about it, or if somebody's come to talk to you about what they're getting up to, that they may have had sex with somebody, that kind of thing, they've met a new person, it becomes slut shaming when it turns into a derogatory term, so that you've decided that they're being dirty for meeting somebody on a dating website or the internet, or they've only recently broken up with their partner a couple of months ago, so you think it should be a longer break before they start seeing somebody else. You don't think they're old enough. You don't think that women should act that way, or men should act that way, or transgender should act that way. That is when it becomes slut shaming. If somebody has confided in you and you're there to shame them, that's a sad place for you to be and for them to be. So if it's out of your league, you can simply excuse yourself from the conversation if you can't say anything nice. But they're probably coming to you because they respect your opinion, they care about you, they know you care about them. And so to shame somebody for something that they're feeling inside them, whether it's sexual or not, isn't okay. And so we need to change that conversation around sexual wellness and how we encourage our family, our friends, anyone around us that may come to us and talk to us about this stuff, create that sexual wellness in their life. So when we talked to consent last week, it was a lot about why people may not be able to consent. You know, they're not mature enough, their self-esteem's low, they're intellectually handicapped. There was a lot of reasons why consent could be a grey area, or why they shouldn't even be approached for it. And I think that comes into your slut shaming too. We want to have those positive conversations so that people's self-esteem, if they're struggling with anxiety or mental illness or low self-esteem, or just aren't big talkers, aren't very good at communicating, we need to take away the stigma that it's a dirty talk, or that it's something to be embarrassed about, or to talk about quietly, so that they can gain a better wellness inside their head around sexuality, and that it isn't something that's measured as your worth, but it's actually something that's given as as a kindness, as somebody you care about. We've got so good at getting what we need. We've forgotten that we go into sexual relationships to share, and so ensuring that we have these conversations change will ensure that sexual wellness and sexual education is easier to receive. And if we're removing the stigma around slut shaming and it not being an issue whether somebody's having sex or not, we're going to lighten that load a lot for everybody, and sexual wellness overall. So I did a little bit of research on to see if there was any studies done around slut shaming and whether it's an issue in schools, online. I'd imagine when I was at high school, we were still on MSN Messenger, just chatting to one another. There wasn't a lot of online interaction between me and my friends or other youth or people out there in the world. So my world was a lot smaller than I believe that teens or everybody's are these days. The internet's opened up the world so much more, and we're interacting with people at a faster rate, but also a larger amount of people. And that leaves it open for people not to care about you. And then that's easier for them to slut shame you, to either get what they want, to make themselves feel better, to try and be derogatory about a certain demographic, religion, that kind of thing. I think it's opened it up a huge amount, the internet. And so doing those studies, looking at those studies, I found heaps of information. There's quite a bit of studies out there on slut shaming and online bullying to do with sexual kind of content and stuff like that. So the stats were huge. So they asked, one particular study I looked at was a girls' school. So it was obviously only girls that were asked all these questions. 73% of the girls from that school said that they'd been called a slut at some point throughout their high school years. And that's huge. That's 3/4. And honestly, me and every one of my friends had been called something like that before. When I don't know what considers a slut, but I don't think that anyone could be really calling anyone in high school something like that. You know, you're just sort of learning, exploring different things, and of course that means that you would have a new partner or something like that. So yeah, I think that it's a shame that it's so prevalent in schools. It could be certainly left for after those, you know, from 18 onwards, but it's definitely not. It's probably used more throughout high school than, like I say, now that I'm in my 30s. So with the different studies that I looked at, they asked in lots of them what people call people sluts for. So what was the reason that they were called a slut? And so it was to do with the amount of partners somebody had. That was also to do with how promiscuous they were, like, so how much they talked about sex, how much they kind of had shared experiences, that kind of stuff, as well as having different sexual partners. So yeah, maybe a few different ones, that kind of thing. And then somebody being dirty was the other one, like, so like whether you related it to somebody's uncleanliness with it, with that too. So that was another one. And it's ridiculous, but that's what's driving it. So it's people's idea around how many people relationships people should have been in, how many sexual relationships they are in or have been in, or have been in the past, and what kind of vibe they give off in high schools, communities, that kind of thing. And it's all definitely in derogatory ways, so it wasn't in a positive way. I think that what I mentioned before about it being sort of a sexual revolution, the word slut shaming, I think I put it next to the woman being able to vote. So there's been a huge shift in women taking back their power, in general, work life, everything, home life, everything. This includes their sexual power. Women were kind of seen to cook for men, clean for men, that kind of thing. And it was no different. You were there to pleasure a man. It was all about him, making him feel like a man, good enough, and that kind of thing. We never spoke about women's pleasures, women having fun, the man doing it for the girl, and stuff like that. And that's really coming back into power. You know, I know when I first bought my first vibrator, I was the only one buying vibrators. I certainly didn't know, we didn't talk about it. No one was telling me they were buying a vibrator as well. That would be 20 years ago now. Maybe not quite, 18. And now pretty much everyone I know has one. Every woman I know has one. Everyone is quite comfortable talking about it. It's on social media, and we're allowed to feel pleasure. We're allowed to have that sexual revolution is happening, and we're allowed it now. And that's, you know, it's all minorities and anyone that's been suppressed is sort of, it's all coming to light now. And I do think that it's great that we've called out slut shaming as an actual thing, and that it's a real issue, especially in youth of today. And so to talk about it more in schools is really important, because it really squashes out those that think it's cool to do it. You know, it's cool to call a girl a slut, or to say that she's disgusting because she has slept with two people, or she likes having sex, or It's absolute bullshit. And so I'm really glad that we can change this conversation. As for guys on the other end, like I said, I'm sure there are cases out there where guys have been slut shamed, but also they get it on the other end where if they're not having sex or talking about sex or making out like they're having heaps of sex, they're kind of slut shamed in reverse. They're not manly enough. They're not cool enough. They're not getting all the hot chicks, and that's not something to measure your worth up in as well. Somebody that cares for their partner in the long term or in the short term in general is something to be talked about, not whether they had sex or not. It's so much more than that. And so we need to change that conversation on both ends, that, you know, it's okay for guys to not want to be promiscuous, to only want to have one partner, or not, or on the other hand, and for females too, and for transgender, and for anyone out there that sees themselves as whatever. Everyone deserves the same. You're allowed to be the person that you want to be, and social norms don't change your worth based on how many people you've had sex with or haven't. I grew up knowing all my friends' numbers of how many people they'd slept with, how many boyfriends they'd had, all that kind of stuff. And it was such a waste of time. It was, why weren't we talking about, oh my gosh, what did you and your boyfriend do on the weekend? Or what do you guys love doing in your spare time? Or, oh my gosh, did you make him breakfast? Or, you know, instead of like, oh, and so are you having sex? And did you have, and what does he do? And was he good? And, you know, no one needs those conversations. Let's talk about love and kindness instead. Let's move the smut from sex and see it as what it is, this awesome, amazing thing that every human has the chance to be involved in. So, why is being sexually active bad? It isn't. It's only bad when it's being forced on you, when you're not ready, when you're not feeling mentally okay, when you don't want to be with that partner. If you are ready, if you are comfortable and it's something you want to explore, it's not a bad thing, and it never was. So I just wanted to really say it like that. Everyone's entitled to feel pleasure, everyone's entitled to have sex, and everybody is entitled to want to explore their sexual side. No one is entitled to force it upon another person or talk about it, about another person sexually when they haven't asked you to. So where did it start from? Where did this grow? It's been, like I say, it's been in our society for a long time. At some point there was the idea that a woman couldn't have more than one sexual relationship. You married, you know, the first man you fell in love with, once you're married you had sex, not before. I don't like to bag on anyone, really. So if that's what you're into, that's totally cool. But to know somebody enough to marry them, from my personal experience, having been married, having had sexual partners, having had relationships, having been in a relationship, having had kids, I can tell you that it's not a healthy way to live. You need to know somebody completely, sexually, mentally, physically, wholeheartedly, to marry them or to even set up your life with them. That doesn't mean that every sexual relationship includes sex. It might be kissing, cuddling. You might have hit your limits at that, and that's okay. But to wait until you're married, until a signed piece of paper has said that it's okay, that's where it's stemmed from, and that's That's a really backwards way of thinking. We're sexual creatures, we're animals, and it's something very normal to us. It's written in our bones and ingrained in us to feel pleasure and to have sex. And being one of the only animals in the world on this planet with a frontal lobe, and one that's developed like ours is the only one, we're lucky that we get to have fun with sex. We want that it's a pleasure. A lot of animals on this planet, it's simply to reproduce, and we aren't those animals. So it's such an awesome thing to have this thing about us. And like I say, every single person on this planet, every human can be sexual, can be kind, can be caring, can be in a sexual relationship, whether that be kissing, cuddling, sex, blowjobs, foreplay, whatever you consider, that's open to every human. And that's pretty fucking cool. So I think that's also where the shaming comes from, because it's available to every human. Human nature is to keep things exclusive, keep it for you, for me, and we just can't help ourselves. Louis Vuitton, Gucci, that kind of thing, prime example. How special do you feel when you buy your first branded bag or pair of shoes or something? You're part of the club. And so that's our issue, was that we've tried to make out like everyone doesn't deserve it, or everyone can't be in the club, when everybody can, and everyone has a different idea of what that club looks like, and so you just gravitate towards those people that are into your club, and then you know that everyone in your club is into the same sexual things as you. And I mean, we do it with everything else, right? We have friends that we go drinks with, friends that we go to yoga with, that kind of thing. We have people that we are drawn to sexually, and others that we're not. And that's an awesome part of being human too. So the whole sexual conquest thing, that still needs to be worked on hugely. Seeing anyone as a prize means you've got some serious psychological issues. To try and own somebody like that, that's narcissistic tendencies, that's control, that's a bit of mental illness. So to those people out there that are still cheering on to the boys that they fuck someone on the weekend, it's a little outdated, and you probably need to go and see somebody for help with that. And for girls that still feel like they are held down for it, you can speak out. There's no need to be living in shame around what you enjoy and what you find sexually fun. So I definitely want to speak about this a little bit more, but we will leave that kind of side topic of sexual conquests and sexual low self-esteem for another whole episode, because it's really interesting and I would love to talk to you guys more about it. So yeah, slut shaming, it's the more we talk about it, the more we use that term slut shaming and how it's not okay, the more it won't be shut behind closed doors. It still is. We still feel like we have to whisper to our friends when we're talking about sex and stuff like that. Us talking about it on here, you guys messaging me, keep up the messages. Thank you so much for all those messages. This is going to be another sexual revolution, and we can do it together, and we can live it together. We certainly don't need it to be amplified, especially with us moving more and more online. It's easy to throw a derogatory or nasty word across the keyboard. So let's keep calling out the people that are saying these nasty things. Let's keep talking about slut shaming, and and that how it relates to sexual wellness, how it's a huge part. Feeling proud of yourself, feeling confident in yourself and not shamed is a huge part of your sexual wellness and sexual education. And so I'm here to help you with it. That's all I have for today about slut shaming. But like I said, we will talk about it a little bit more. It's such a big topic, and sort of those side topics that come off it are huge too. But yeah, for today, I think that just explaining where slut shaming came from, that it's becoming a really old thing, and how we need to keep pushing forward to get that revolution for everyone equally. So I will see you all next Tuesday. I was popping up my videos Mondays, but I've just found that Tuesday gives me a little bit more time to get ready at the start of the week. So we'll be doing every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Next week, I have another topic that I will release on Wednesday, and we will be talking about that a little bit more. But for now, secret. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming to episode 3, and I will see you guys all in a week's time. Bye.